Hello, welcome to this very special edition of the Pace Report. I'm Brian Pace, reporting live here at the 2021 BRIC Jazz Festival here at BRIC, here in downtown Brooklyn. One of the headlining musicians here is an accomplished bassist who hails from Israel by the name of Adi Meyerson. Now, over the last 6 years, Adi Meyerson has been one of the preeminent bassists who's not only learning the language of jazz, but she's understanding the roots of American black music. Her debut album did very well on the jazz charts, but her new album is entitled I Want to Sing My Heart Out in Praise of Life, which features special guests ranging from trumpeter Marquise Hill to saxophonist and vocalist Camille Thurman. Now tonight you're going to witness the debut of this brand new music, as well as my interview with her talking about why she decided to write this music, which was inspired by art, as well as what's been happening during this pandemic of COVID-19. We sit down and we talk about her origins growing up in Israel, how she was exposed to jazz music, and also how she's been able to translate the bass in modern jazz music. So sit back, relax, and enjoy Adi Meyerson live here at this year's 2021 BRIC Jazz Festival here in downtown Brooklyn. It's part of the Pace Report here in Brooklyn, New York. the premiere of a great embodiment of work that you've written. We're not post-COVID yet, but
You're not.
I don't think it's far from done. So this was inspired by a piece of or works of art, and then you wrote this suite during the pandemic, and it was recorded during the pandemic. How did this come about?
Well, it started when I went to see her exhibit in, I think it was 2019 or 2018. And it kind of inspired the idea and the concept of like writing something about her art and the colors that I see when I hear music. I have this thing called synesthesia, and I kind of see colors when I hear music. So something about the colors she was using in her art like was real similar to the ones I would see with pitches. So kind of this idea was planted in my head to maybe like write music inspired by it. And then when I was in grad school the year after, and I was taking class with Dave Liebman, there was an assignment to write a suite based on something that's not music, so like art or something else. And I was like, this is a great opportunity to do this thing that I always wanted. So the draft, I guess the first draft of it started there, and then later on, I just decided to develop it into something else and something a little bigger. And then the pandemic happened, and a lot of the music was written kind of before the pandemic, and then it kind of took a new shape and new form during the pandemic. And then right before the pandemic, I applied for the New York Foundation of the Arts Women's Grant and received funding to do this project. And that literally happened. They let me know that I received the funding about a week or two before the world shut down.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it was meant for you to do this project.
So then I was like, everything was shut down, but I had this money to make this album, and nothing was clear. I didn't know what was going to happen, and a few months went by, and I was just like, oh, well, I got to do it. So I decided to. It was kind of a blessing in a way to record it during the pandemic, I have to say.
You know, this is a quick departure from your debut record, which is Straight Ahead Jazz. And this is, you know, you're bringing in some very important musicians for this project to oversee how you wrote this music. Mm-hmm. Was it hard? Did you automatically know who you wanted to play the parts and who you wanted to sing when you were putting this together?
Kind of, yeah.
Really?
In a way, yeah. For certain voices, Sabeth and I went to grad school together, so I got to spend a lot of time with her. So definitely, like, her voice was in my head when I wrote those vocal parts for her. And yeah, Camille was my first. I was like, I have to get someone like Camille, Marquise, like all of them. And I just was looking for a very specific sound and was able to find it. And that's why it was kind of a blessing in that way, because everyone was available.
Right.
And everybody was home, so I was able to really be like, this is the person that I want, that I know will play this music in the highest level. And it's not just, and we live in New York, so there's so many people who can play this music in a very, very high level and do great at it, but sonically, just like the way their sounds are, I kind of was like, this is going to work really well. And the vibe was really well in the studio, like we had such a good time.
You're relatively young, and you are speaking with a lot of authority when you play that bass. I mean, from my understanding, I know a lot about my artists now. I did some deep research.
Okay.
The acoustic bass is not where it started. In fact, I heard you're an Iron Maiden fan. I heard I heard you like that metal stuff, and there's nothing wrong with it. But I got to figure out how we got from the bass, and also from what I heard and what I read, that the acoustic bass is pretty much still pretty new to you in your journey right now.
It's true. I started on electric bass. The way our school system works in Israel is we go usually from 7th to 12th grade to one school. So I went into this art school for visual art, and then started hanging out with all these boys that played music and were like metal fans. And I always wanted to play music, but it just never really happened. And at that point, I was an independent adult who had some money, and I decided to buy a bass because they didn't have a bass in the band. And they were like, we would all like walk around with like Iron Maiden and Guns N' Roses shirts and think we were like the coolest kids.
Oh, always.
Always. We were like in 8th grade, I think.
Wow.
So that's what they're listening to, so that's what I started listening to, and was like, oh, this is dope, I love this. And then later on I kind of started to get into departure from that and get into like fusion music, like Jocko and Victor Wooten and UZ, which is this French-Canadian band that nobody knows about in the US, but everyone loves in Israel. Just that kind of music, Weather Report. And then later on, I think when I was about like 17 or so, I got a bunch of jazz records from a friend. And I kind of knew, like, in the music program in our school, it wasn't really a jazz program, but we were working on jazz music. Like, so I kind of had like an idea of what it was, but I didn't quite understand what it was until I heard these like Sonny Rollins records that someone gave me. And I was like, oh, this is what it sounds like. This is what I want to do. And then kind of tried to do that on electric bass. And at some point I realized, like,
can't happen.
This isn't really happening. So I'm going to go get an upright bass. So I kind of waited till I graduated from high school to get into it and start taking lessons. And then moved to New York maybe like 3 years after. 2 or 3. Yeah. Went to school there. I had a teacher that took a big chance on me because I auditioned to the program in Israel when I was only playing upright bass for like 3 months. I actually auditioned on electric bass, and he was like, "Do you play upright?" And I said, "I just started." It's like, "Great, play a blues." And then I played it, and he was like, "All right, it's cool. You can do the program." And then so I moved to New York when I was about 21. So I've only been playing bass. I started when I was 18, play upright, so I'm not going to tell everybody how old I am, but...
Oh, no,
but it's not that long, but it's not that short, I guess, they can guess. We can leave that as a mystery.
What is up with Israel? You guys produce some tremendous bass players.
I know.
What's going on? Is it in the water? What is it?
I guess, the sun, food.
Why? And you also have one of the most prestigious jazz festivals over
We do.
The Red Sea. So how is jazz and how is American black music exposed? How you guys have radio? How is it?
We do. I mean, I was exposed to it by, I had a family friend who really loved jazz, who kind of gave me my first little exposure to it. But also just, I don't know, really. In the school, we have some art schools. We did have this, I had a teacher, my first teacher who I was talking about earlier he spent a lot of time in New York in his youth, and there was a lot of jazz musicians that came to New York and then moved back and became really what we're getting educated with is like these people. So my teacher, Amit, was a Barry Harris student. So he kind of brought that energy into our school. And then another teacher of ours is Erez as well, was like they would go to Barry Harris's classes. So they would kind of like teach us in the same way that they were taught. And just loved the music so much that it was like, oh great, yes, of course this is the greatest thing in the world. I don't know. I really don't know how it is. I think there are a lot of like, I've been thinking about this a lot and talking to my friends about it. Just I guess certain similarities. The fact that Israel's like in the Middle East,
right,
and like very close to Africa and that part of the world, there is a lot of like similarities to Black culture in that sense. So a lot, and as well as like Middle Eastern music that comes from North Africa. We have a lot of Moroccan Jews, a lot of people from Yemen. Like those are places that are in Africa. So certain, I guess, rhythms and vibes and feels are also part of like Israeli music that are influenced from. We're on the border of Egypt.
Right.
You know, so it's like I feel like there's a lot of similarities and a lot of things, also like food, culture, music, that kind of rhythms that kind of can correspond with like, you know, kind of with jazz. It's not exactly it, but we have like, you know, the clave.
Yes.
So we call it like Mediterranean or like Middle Eastern music, and it's the same beat. It's just sounds like compa.
Yeah.
It sounds like Haitian music. It sounds like anything if you just switch up the rhythms a tiny bit, but it's all the same foundation. And I remember coming here and like hearing like dance music, and I was like, oh, this all makes sense now.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that sounds like our music.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why. I don't know. Who knows? Long story short, but definitely just like teachers and people that really made me love this music and spread that love, and then inspired me to come to New York and like study this music and pursue my heroes and study with them while they're still here.
So divine, where every shape and color counts as equally sublime. One can only dream. Stars to feel so that I can do anything I choose. Start a revolution and tear down the walls. Escape from all the boxes that they try to hold.
I completely get this whole bass thing, and you're so immersed with the upright that I found some very interesting tidbits about who you studied as far as the masters, and one of them is Will Crosby from Ahmad Jamal's iconic trio.
Yes.
And I was wondering why him, because I mean not too many people talk about him.
Right. His bass lines are so melodic, and the way his voice leading, the way he leads his voices, I just found that fascinating. The way he constructs his bass lines, it's like not conventional in a way, but something about it just like really, I don't know.
Was it because Ahmad always space?
Probably that too.
Less is more with him. Yeah.
And then he could really like bring out the music in a certain way, but like, I don't know. He uses a lot of different kind of notes that like aren't necessarily chord tones or things, but accents them in a certain way that kind of you're like, oh, okay. And they're all like little melodies, and they're so cool, and there's so much space, and the beat is so bouncy, and it feels so good. But it's funny because he's I feel like Ron Carter also talks about him a lot.
Yes,
he's
he
one
does.
of Ron's influences, who's also one of my, like, I don't know. He's part of the lineage, and it's important for me to.
What'd you learn from Ron Carter?
What did I learn from Ron Carter? Oh my God.
He's a walking textbook of everything.
I learned so much. I think the biggest thing is discipline, because I never really had a teacher before Ron Carter that was like, this is what, like, I kind of got into it by myself. Like, I had a little bit of a classical teacher in Israel, but it was like pretty loose. And then I moved to New York, and everything was pretty loose. Kind of just like learned on the bandstand a lot of things, and then being in a room with Ron, I was like, oh, okay. Learned how to practice.
Yeah.
I learned how to be disciplined. And
right.
It took a lot for me to learn that. I'm still learning, but yeah, that's definitely one of the biggest and most valuable lessons I got from him. I learned a lot of other things too, though.
Also, Oscar Pettiford and Paul Chambers. Those two.
Well,
those
how
are.
can you?
Well, I mean,
Like,
well, Oscar Pettiford is another one that we talk about, but we really don't talk
Right.
about. He's a cat that he was heavy before it was heavy.
Right.
Ray Brown was a heavy cat too, but
Yeah.
Oscar Pettiford is he's another beast. What attracted you to Oscar Pettiford?
I just the clarity in the way he like solos and stuff. I guess just and listening to records where the bass was like so up front and like as a soloistic instrument was like very different than what I've heard before. And I think that was really interesting to me, and I wanted to be able to do that. And now I don't actually like to play bass solos that much, honestly.
Why?
I don't know. This is I like holding it down. But every once in a while when I get to play a solo, I enjoy playing melodies. I really like melodies. I think, and I maybe that's why I write songs and compose too, because I like writing melodies.
Wow, that's interesting. That's very interesting.
Melodies. I like harmony and rhythm too, but lately my head has been at like melodies a little bit.
Because I mean, the closest thing that I can think of Oscar Pettiford is Andy Simpkins, who was with Three Sounds, but he was more down home bluesy with how he played. We just don't talk about Oscar that much.
We don't.
No, we don't. But Paul Chambers is another cat that is interesting because he's played with everybody, but he's one of those guys that he plays well with everybody, but some records you listen to is like, because Paul was a guy that was by himself. He was in the class by himself. Is that what attracted you to how he played as well?
I think him, it was like his beat. It was just so perfect. So down the middle, so perfect, so round. Like, it always feels good. I don't know.
Especially that Miles Davis.
Yeah, like that stuff. That album, Someday My Prince Will Come.
Yeah.
That was stuck. It was stuck in my car. Like I had a CD player and the CD was stuck. Couldn't get it out. It was the only thing I listened to for like 6 months in the car.
Poor thing.
I know that album by heart, but like just that, like learning all those bass lines and studying it, And then getting to meet Jimmy Cobb was really cool too. Right after. That CD was stuck in my car. He came to Israel and I got to meet him, and I was like...
And it's sad because there's no one from that remaining group that's still alive. That's crazy.
But I am glad I got to spend some time with him and have some musical experiences, but also like out of like just hang experiences. So it was fun. We had a good time.
Meyerson, what does jazz music mean to you?
Oh man, what does jazz music mean to me? I don't know. Are we allowed to use the word jazz?
You can. This is your
Maybe
your
don't
answer.
Put that on camera.
This is your answer. You
I
can
don't
answer
start
how
any-
this
no.
is.
No, I don't know. What does jazz mean to me? It's, for me personally, I came to this music because I felt like a lot of the times as a kid and just as a person, it's kind of, it was hard for me to express myself and to find a place where I felt like I could fit in and could belong and had space to be who I am. And the minute I started playing jazz music and discovering and getting deeper and deeper into this style of music, Black American music, and what it means to like use music as an outlet for expression, I just was like, oh, I can do that. I can use art to express things that I cannot express in words. I can use notes instead of like trying to construct a sentence. And also being on stage, I was a really shy kid. I'm still a little shy, but I had horrible stage fright. I couldn't even raise my hand to ask to go to the bathroom in class. I was so shy. But then when I started playing music and playing jazz and improvising with that, it was like that disappeared. So I think coming to that music, it was just a good place for me to like be able to be myself. And the more I learn about it, the more I study it, and the more amazing of an art form it is, and the more I want to honor it, and to honor its roots and where it came from, and to understand really, really what it means. Just really what it means, I guess.
That'll do it again for this very special edition of the Pace Report. I'm Brian Pace, reporting live here at BRIC, here in downtown Brooklyn, for this year's 2021 BRIC JazzFest. I'd like to personally congratulate and thank the talented Adi Meyerson for her time. Make sure you support her brand new CD, I Want to Sing My Heart Out in Praise of Life, which is now available on iTunes, Amazon.com, as well as CD Baby. Also, I'd like to personally congratulate the staff and management here at BRIC for their warm hospitality. Also, I'd like to thank the festival organizers for putting on a fantastic 3 days here at BRIC for the 2021 BRIC Jazz Festival. Also, I'd like to personally thank and congratulate Matt Merowitz and Fully Altered Media for their wonderful 3 days and their assistance here at BRIC, as well as the talented Lydia Liebman for arranging my time with Adi. People like, share, and subscribe to my videos here on YouTube and Vimeo, as well as visit my website, thepacereport.com, for my weekly column, as well as my past segments. Until next time, remember, if it's in the groove, it'll make you move. Till next time, peace.